back to the show. It is Katryn Rose, and you are viewing Creatrix today. Thank you so much for joining me live or on the replay. And today we're going to talk about a subject that's really close to my heart called cut the cord. And I'm sure many of you, if you're familiar with energy work, are familiar with the process or the concept of cutting cords. There's a lot of rules around it, how to do it, how not to. I am writing a book that's called Cut the Cord, and it will be available later in the summer, but we're going to talk a little bit about that today and give you some insights, because a lot of people struggle with moving forward, and they've done therapy and they've done other types of mindset work, which are all important, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they still feel stuck. And there's different things that we can do to help alleviate that stuck feeling. So that's what we're going to talk about today on the show. And I'm going to check my notes just to make sure that we are on track and, honor your time that you're here with me. So, how do we know if we need to cut cords or release something from the past? There's so much talk on that. There's a time to do it, there's a time not. And, how do we discern that for ourselves? So, a couple of questions to really have you ground into this for yourself is just ask, like, have you ever felt stuck? Like you're carrying burdens that are not your own and you're not imagining it. Okay? Have you been told to cut cords, but no one really showed you how up until now? And really, like, tune into your body like we do regularly. And just ask yourself, if you have cut cords in the past, do I feel complete? Because often we can record or new cords happen. And in the book, I'll talk a lot more about that. But, just start by tuning in and feel. So I've walked this route. I learned about cutting cords a couple of decades ago. I've ebbed and flowed with it. And in the process of really shifting my work and my personal life, which, for me and for many of us, they're very interrelated, I began working with cords again very specifically. And as I did, I cut cords not just to people, but situations, circumstances, experiences of the past, related to family patterns, to trauma, and very specifically relationships. But like I said, relationships to different things, not just people. And every time I did it and released it and gave gratitude, I reclaimed more of myself, that fractured part of me that the energy of others pulled onto me. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But cords can be very significant. So what are energy cords? For those of you that are new to this and know nothing about it, clear and simple, cords are energetic ties, emotional, mental, and even ancestral, that bind us to people, systems, stories, experiences. And so, let's feel into that a little, and I'll give you a couple of examples or ask you some other questions more than we did at the top to set some framework around it. Or so, like when you're on the phone, or now it's a cell phone, but you finish your phone call and you feel exhausted. That can be a symptom or an example of being corded to someone. Another one is like a relationship that still wears on you or heavily years later, whether it's the breakup from a partner, whether you're married or just dating, whatever it is, but that energy or the thought constructs that come up that leave you feeling angry or frustrated or victimized, whatever it is, then you're still corded to that person. Other examples, like you just feel like you talked at the beginning, you can't move forward and you don't know why. That's a cord. You are corded to something, and it really invites you to get into that quiet space and ask simply, like, what am I corded to? And then being willing to release it. So oftentimes we're corded or have attachments to things, and it is serving us unconsciously in ways we might not even want to admit or accept. And so we really have to get to that point of asking, am I willing to release the hold this has? Maybe cord isn't the word that resonates for you, but am I willing to let go of how it's serving me unconsciously? you can ask yourself a variety of language. And if you get a no, that's some insight that for some reason there's something inside of you unconsciously that is not allowing you to move forward. And that's our own inner resistance or tension. And it could be the shadow side of an archetype, it could be many things. But if you get a yes, when you get a clear yes, it's like, let's take action, let's cut the cords, let's do the process and free ourselves of that energy. Because the more we release and free inside of ourselves, the more capacity we have for creativity, for generating income, for being with other people. And we build our light body or our container for the capacity to not just have more come to us, but to hold it and sustain it. So, this is why cutting cords can be a really foundational piece to your energetic freedom. So, why is that? Because when we feel lighter and brighter, like, whatever it is, just feel better and we flow better. And the people around us, they might not know what's going on. We don't have to tell them we're cutting cords, but they can feel that energy, that lighter part of us, the part that's excited and that attracts people to us. And we shift our behavior. And as we shift our behavior and our actions, people around us will shift. Again, not even consciously most of the time. So here's a couple tidbits on why energy freedom and doing this is the foundation, because you can't create your future, right? Like the title says, or the thing, if you're entangled in the past, and entangling gives us that vision of cords. You could sit, for example, in front of a vision board all day long, right? Calling in your new partner, the love of your life, whatever it is. But if you're still energetically hooked or entangled to your ex, or to your parents' expectations of what that looks like, or a corporate system you may have left, you won't move forward. You won't call in that relationship. Well, you'll be calling, but it's not going to show up. You won't have the new job in the way that you would love, or if you get these things, they disappear rather quickly, or they turn into something that, maybe that's not really what I wanted or needed in my life to fulfill me. So, energy freedom, right, it's not a luxury. It is a foundation for sovereign creation and a havingness of a life that you would just really love to have. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, send them to me or keep listening. And hop onto creatrix.club and sign up for my mailing list, and you'll be one of the first to know when this book is coming out that goes really deep into this and also gives you the practical exercises on how to execute this, and reflections that you'll be able to dive a little deeper. So I want to share a personal story about cutting a cord and allowing me to move forward and how things shifted. And then I really felt free. And I'm going to talk about the relationship with my ex briefly, because a lot of what I find is that when I work with people, regardless of the reason that they come, whether it's, I want to create more abundance, I would love a new career, I want to move, my life isn't working, I feel stuck, most of it comes back to personal relationships. And as you've heard me say, and I used to say on the Quantum Shift podcast, the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself. So when we become energetically sovereign, we are building that relationship with ourselves on different levels, right? We and I work, as you know, on different planes, the mental, the emotional, the energetic, the soul level, where then you go out and you create and build new skill sets so that you have new results. So I have been separated for years from my husband, about 4 years, 4.5 years, but I wanted to leave for a very long time. And he's not a bad guy, and I'm not going to bash him or anything like that. But we were very entangled. We'd known each other. Gosh, now it's been 28 years we've known each other, and we were married for almost 19 years or over 19 years when I left. And we have children together, and I have stepchildren, and we formed our own habits and codependence and behaviors with each other, some healthy and some not healthy. But we were really entangled. So when I physically moved and we separated, I hadn't completely emotionally or energetically moved. And my mind was going back and forth with that. And we were struggling on agreeing to terms for divorce. So that is one reason it got tabled and put on the back burner. And I had trouble having conversations with him about it. He had his fixed opinion. I had my fixed opinion. And, we weren't making any headway. We weren't ready for mediation. So instead of hiring a lawyer and mediation at the time, I mean, I do have counsel, I did the energetic work. I went in on my own. I called in guides, especially like Archangel Michael, Kuan Yin, and Mother Mary for compassion for him. And I worked on cutting the energetic cords. And a side note, if you've been very intimate with someone and had, intercourse, you are even more energetically connected. Like that act and the act of birthing children or being a parent are like really the cords that bind us. And we don't want to carry the cords. When we have young children, there are some natural cords and cords of love that we want to support them with. But over time, too, we still don't want to be corded to individuals. We want, even in the case of my husband, him to have his own energetic sovereignty. So the cutting the cords was not about me going in and dictating how I wanted him to show up and what I wanted him to agree to. It was my own inner work. And as I cut cords to different aspects of our relationship, the emotional, the mental, the intimate, all of it, I cut cords, I unrooted them for me. I sent him his energy back to him. I took mine back. But I also called in unseen support and asked for guidance, asked for us to both present at our highest level when we talked. And I did a lot of forgiveness work. Like I forgave him energetically. Um, I offered gratitude. I also asked for forgiveness because, it takes two in any relationship when it doesn't work out. Um, and I didn't blame. It took me a while. There was a while I was really angry. Moments of anger come up. I am human, but I made the conscious choice not to blame him for anything. And then one day, a few months later, when I had a conversation with him about the divorce and about me moving and being nomadic, his energy was so different. He was much more willing to negotiate and talk about the divorce from a different energy. And it wasn't me telling him and demanding and getting counsel and having, when we fight something, and that's why we're leaving the energy of like forcing, fixing, fighting. When we fight something, we make the other side stronger because they come at it and they have to fight too. So I did that softer work, that inner work of cutting the cords. And I will say the dynamic between us shifted radically. Now, is it perfect? No. Do we still have our emotional stuff come up? Absolutely. But working on getting through the divorce and being able to talk about terms and supporting our children has been very different. It's palpable and it's powerful. And I felt free because I freed myself of the energetic holds and the entanglements we had. Now, we still have to go work and do the work of having the conversations. But like I said, it shifted the energy. So the conversations were easier to have. And because I was also like building that container of energetic sovereignty, and particularly in relation to our marriage and our relationship together, I felt stronger. I did the self-care that I do, that I talk about in the gems. If you want that, let me know. It's an acronym for working with foundational energy things, basic everyday things, not as, imaginal as cord cutting and things like that. But I do the work for me and it has shifted and I feel really good. We're going at our own pace for that. And I feel good about honoring both of our sovereignty and both of our needs in the process. So cutting cords was really pivotal, and combining it, as I mentioned, with gratitude, with forgiveness, with my own inner reflection. And when you do personal work and you're on a journey, it's really valuable to take stock in your part in something and not blame someone. So when you can shift the energy, everything else shifts around you. So feeling sovereign, feeling energetically free, everything in your life starts to fall into place in an easier way. It's not always perfect. So let's be really clear about that. So we do other work for visioning and setting intentions beyond that. And so that leads me to my next point about the future, right? The future is moving fast. It's like it's coming faster and faster. So it seems, because we live in times where everything is accelerating because of technology, because of many people becoming more aware and desiring to make inner shifts so that their life goes smoothly and to see a different type of world. Now, not everybody does, but because more and more people are doing that, that energy is rippling out. So it feels like the future continues to accelerate while all the systems around us crumble. They've been crumbling for years. It's heightened right now. And then again, technology moving faster than our minds can even begin to grasp sometimes. And so I've been working with and downloading a higher intelligence field to help people manage their energy. And it's beyond cord cutting to keep up. So you can completely master your field. And don't stay entangled with those systems that are falling. Because again, it's like when we fight the old system, like so many people talk about the patriarchy, and we got to fight it, and we got to knock it down. We're making it stronger. Whereas if we focus on our own energy and look at that from a different perspective and get into our creative vibe, it's like, how can I make it better? How can I shift? What system can I build in its place? Because it's going to crumble regardless of what we do. And as that happens, things come up to be released, and it's not all pretty, right? So we become, or we notice more and more people are noticing that we're in this time of transition, even since before COVID in the last decade, and it's heightened and it's uncomfortable and it is scary for a lot of people. And so if we get into honoring our feelings, cutting the cords, releasing the attachments to them, letting go of the story, honoring the story, but letting it go, we feel freer. And again, it goes back to creating something new in our own life, in our family, in our community, in the collective, so that we don't have to fear the future. It's not meant to be feared. It's meant to be embraced and enjoyed and lived with full vitality. And we're here to create that. So if that resonates with you and you want to go deeper and learn about cord cutting in a different way, and not just cord cutting, but fully mastering your energy, like cord cutting for some people is the doorway in. And there's many, many ways to work with energy. My ways, and their multitude, may not resonate with you, but I would invite you to find someone that does. Like, really give yourself permission to work with your energy field. You're working on your mindset, you're working with your emotions. And we actually know, we've talked about that, emotions are just energy. And when we know how to work with energy more effectively, we can work with our emotions in a different way, where we're not stuck in the story, where we're not ruminating, and that our relationships with other people feel better. We feel better, our relationships feel better, they run more smoothly. And we, for lack of a better word, we feel happier or more joyful, because that's what most people really want, right? Remember, it's not to say that every aspect of the relationship is going to go perfectly. I had a client the other day who was talking about a past relationship where he put his female partner up on a pedestal. And after a few years, there were cracks in that because, one, it didn't serve either of them to have her up in that light that isn't real. Instead of, being on the pedestal, he couldn't see who she was. And so when he saw bits of that, he didn't like it. And what he was coming to understand, though, is that he also saw his own self in a certain way. And the goal wasn't to change her or the situation, but to look at himself and how can I shift my perspective? How can I have a different expectation next time? And what chords would I benefit from cutting to free myself to start working on the energy? So if any of that resonates with you, again, go to Creatrix, Kreatrix.club. You'll be on my intermittent mailing list. You'll be the first to know when the book comes out. And come back to Creatrix TV. I will talk about cord cutting or working with energy and the CAT protocols, because all of this, my way of doing it, is in the Creatrix alignment technology, KAT. Um, and we'll talk about that and share that as you go to support you to feel better, focus better, and function better in your life. So if that resonates, this is just the beginning. We will go deeper. I am so honored that you were here. If you're looking for group support, eventually, as I said, there'll be one for Cat, and you can go to creatrix.club. But I do have the group that I work with, Kristen and Sandra, the Seer group, SEER, the Spiritual Exploration and Energetic Roundtable, where we work with all kinds of energy concepts to support people and work in community. We meet twice a month. If that resonates with you, check it out. I put the link in the comments, or find me on Substack if you're into written short articles about these topics. So I will see you next week. And as a reminder, upcoming, I have 2 scheduled interviews with amazing vibrational astrologers, Michelle Marie and Kathy Sanchez. We might have a third, and we're going to talk about how vibrational astrology can really support you on your energy journey and your journey to wholeness and sovereignty and really having clarity in your life, maybe on things that happened in the past. And you can weave this in with the cutting cords and getting clear on what you're here to do and where you want to go so that you feel better. Because that's mostly what many of us want to do, right? We want to feel better, focus better, function better, and then all the things, like bring in all the beautiful things. So I will catch you next time. Thank you for watching, and much, much